Hello viewers, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2018 Mercedes Sprinter with a 3.0 liter engine. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light is on the dash. I have to mention that the owner of this vehicle is one of our subscribers here on our YouTube channel. His name is Bob. Bob reached out to me. He sent me an email and explained that he bought this vehicle from a company that he used to work for, and this vehicle has been sitting for a while. So he bought it, he took it to the Mercedes dealership, and they gave him the estimate. What they told him didn't make sense. He went online and did some research. He found my video. He sent us an email. He told me that he felt more comfortable sending his vehicle to our shop. So he towed this vehicle from PA. So they towed this vehicle from 4 hours away from us. So they towed it to us, and here we are. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go in the vehicle and confirm the customer's complaint. We're gonna see the check engine light that's remaining on the dash, and then we're gonna connect the scan tool to the vehicle to see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine computer. Now, since this vehicle has been sitting for a while, I told the customer that we're gonna have to drain the fluids, so we will do an oil change. We're also gonna do a transmission flush, and we will do a coolant flush as well. So I'm probably not gonna show that on camera. I will most likely do the fluid flush off camera, but let's figure out why the check engine light is on. Now, before we go in the vehicle, I wanna give a shout out to our cameraman Matt. Thanks for being here. So now let's go in the vehicle so we can see what we got. We are here in the vehicle. I got my scan tool connected to the van. I'm gonna start the engine first so we can confirm the customer's complaint. So right there, actually this needs power steering fluid. So customer's complaint confirmed. As you can see, the check engine light remains on the dash. The power steering is making noise. Yeah, actually Matt, before we might have to take this on a test drive depending on what it's gonna need. Let's go under the hood and put some power steering fluid in the power steering reservoir before we scan the engine. Before we scan the engine computer. Okay, so we got some power steering fluid. So this is Napa European power steering fluid. So here, I don't know if you can see, let me get a light. So over here, Matt, this is our power steering fluid reservoir. So I'm gonna open it, and hopefully there is no leak in the power steering system. Oh, look at that, it's dry. Yeah, this is dry. So the power steering fluid is lower than normal. So I'm gonna add I'm going to turn the steering wheel. The pump could be bad actually. The pump is making noise. I mean, it's getting quieter, so that's good. You see all those bubbles? That's because there's air in the system. So we're going to have to drive it. So to bleed the system, you have to turn the steering wheel left and right. So it's got quiet now. And then I'm gonna observe it to see if there's a leak somewhere. Okay, so I'll put the cap back on. Let's go back in the vehicle so we can scan the engine computer. It's a lot quieter now. You know, it's still making noise a little bit, but this is a lot better than the way it was. All right, so I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. Actually, here's the dealer tag. This is the tag they put at the dealer. Okay, so this came from the dealer. Let's see what we're gonna find. This is a 2018 Sprinter van. Let's auto ID the vehicle. Now, I don't think we can take this on the road because it probably doesn't have tags. So I don't think we can drive this. So the scan tool has identified the vehicle. This vehicle has 170,000 miles. So let's do a code scan and see what we got. So we have 9 trouble codes in the engine computer. So since we don't have tags on this one, we can't drive it. Because I wanted to drive it, I believe the customer told me that the van is losing power. And I don't have sharp tags, okay? So that's something I need to get. Because if I had my own tags, I could have just put sharp tags and drive it. Because if you have sharp tags, if you get pulled over, you can tell a police officer that, hey, we are from a shop and we're just test driving the vehicle. But I'm not going to take the chance of trying to drive this with no tags. So here are the codes we have. The first code is an OEM specific code. The second code is P16CC00. The AdBlue fill level is too low, so the DEF fluid could be low in the tank. And then we have another fault over here. The third fault is 10C700. There is an internal fault in component B90/2. Okay, left EKS. The EKS is the flaps in the intake manifolds, that system. And then component M72/2 intake port shutoff actuator is faulty. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fifth code could be the code that's causing the other codes to be set in the engine computer. And then the other code we have is component B14, outside temperature sensor has an open circuit. So the ambient temperature sensor has an open circuit. Now, what I usually see with the ambient temperature sensor codes, the issue sometimes ends up being the sensor itself. The sensor could be open, or the wire to the sensor could be broken, because this sensor is located behind the bumper just in front of the vehicle. And then the other code we have is P16B400. It says component R53/4 fuel filter heater with compensation sensor has a short. So this can just be a fuel filter issue. So it looks like this van doesn't need much. This van is not going to need much. So on the generic side of the tool, we have intake manifold runner performance bank 1, intake manifold runner control stack open, and then so the manifold runners, the flaps are stack open. The customer told me that when he took this vehicle to the dealership, they told him because the vehicle is losing power, it's because of these. Now, from experience, from working on a lot of these printers, when your flaps on the intake manifolds are stuck open, they don't usually cause the vehicle to lose power. Usually what causes the vehicle to lose power is if they're stuck closed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the swirl motor between the intake manifolds to see if it's working. And if the swirl motor is not working, that is probably what's causing these codes to be set. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is the scan tool has saved all these codes. Alternator generator load signal is implausible. I believe the customer told me that the alternator light was also coming on, so we have an alternator code in the signal acquisition module. So the alternator is probably failing. We have all these codes saved, so I'm gonna go into the engine computer. Let's erase all these codes and see which ones come back first. And then we're gonna go under the hood and check the swirl motor. We're probably gonna have to use our RTL scan tool and turn the swirl motor on to see if it's actuating, okay? Because the issue could just be a defective swirl motor. So here are the codes that we have, and then we're also gonna check the AdBlue level to see if if we need to add some DEF fluid in the DEF tank. I'm going to clear all these codes. Let's see if there's a code that came back. So no codes present. We erased all the codes. I'm going to start the engine. What? The battery just died? Okay, I'm going to put a battery charger. The battery died, guys. I'm going to put a battery charger on the vehicle, and then I'll bring you guys back up. All right, I got the battery charger on the battery. So now we should be able to start the vehicle. Let me see. We got no codes in the engine computer. We shouldn't have any codes because we just cleared them. For some reason, this scan tool has been acting up. Sometimes it takes too long to scan the engine computer. I don't know, it probably needs to be updated. Okay, so right there. So let's go in the engine computer. Let's read the codes. Oh, okay, so we erased these codes. Let me try this again. So no codes. I'm gonna start the engine. Engine is running. I'm gonna rev it. So I can hear the turbo hissing under the hood. So that's good. Matt, can you hear it? So turbo is hissing. Let me check our boost pressure because we cannot drive it on the road. So let me see what boost we're building here while we're sitting here at idle. We're not building enough boost. This is a problem. We're only building about 1 psi of boost. It would be nice if we can drive this though, but I don't want to take the risk to take it on the road. What about if we get pulled over?
Just tell me test driving.
Just tell him we're test driving. Cameraman Matt said we can take you on a test drive without tags. I'll blame it on you, Matt, if we get in trouble. Okay, yeah, we might have to just risk it. We don't have to go far. We can just go. Is it good? Okay, camera. Hey, we are getting comments about you doing that. You're gonna get some bad comments, Matt. People will say, "Oh, your camera is too shaky." But guys, when cameraman moves the camera up and down, that is him saying yes. Okay, so give cameraman Matt a break. We love cameraman Matt. He's doing a good job. So let's see. Let me see if there's a code that came back. Okay, so the intake port shut-off actuator is faulty. So that code is coming back. Let me turn off the engine. Let me turn the key on. Let's read the codes. Okay, that code is coming back. And then, actually, since we said we're gonna drive it with no tags, let's go on a test drive first. And then when we come back, I'm gonna check the actuator between the intake manifolds, okay? So, I'm gonna open the door so we can go on a test drive. Okay, while the engine is running, let's go under the hood and fill up the DEF system. Let's put some DEF fluid in the tank, and then we're gonna take this on a test drive. So let's go under the hood. I got some DEF fluid here. We're gonna put some in the DEF tank. Look how we have spider webs over here. So I'm gonna undo this. So it's probably low. Man, this car has been sitting for a while because we got spider webs all over this thing. So let's put some DEF fluid in the tank. Whoa, it's taking the whole thing. I guess it was empty. Wow. Yeah, we put all of it. All right, we put the whole thing in it. It was empty. So now I'm going to close the hood so we can take this on a test drive. All right, let's go. So let's back out of here. Actually, when I looked behind the van, there is a tag on this van. I don't know if it's expired, but there's a tag there, so we're not gonna go far anyways. I'm gonna bring up my boost pressure data pid on the scan tool here. Matt will put that on the screen for you guys so you can see. So I'm gonna watch my boost pressure as we are driving. No, I'll put it down here. Okay. Because if I remember correctly, I believe the customer told me that the vehicle is losing power. So let's take it on the road and see. I mean, when we revved up the engine while we were sitting in the shop, the highest pressure we built was 1 psi, which is slightly lower than normal. It should have gone higher than that, but let's see. Oh, this thing is losing power. It's losing power big time. I'm flooring the accelerator pedal right now. Can you show the dash? We're only doing like 30 miles an hour. Can you see? Can you see my foot down here? Look, I'm flooring the accelerator pedal. Sorry, Matt. I'm flooring the accelerator pedal. Ooh. This is a problem. This is a problem. But I heard the turbo hissing though. Let me look at our, you guys will see this, but yeah, the maximum boost we're building is 1.08 psi. This vehicle is losing power big time. Big time. I wonder if we're gonna set a low boost code. Okay, so it's picking up speed right now because we're going downhill. Yeah, this thing's got no power. Now, we might have a boost leak somewhere. When we get back to the shop, I might have to smoke the induction system to see if we have a leak somewhere. Because I could hear the turbo hissing, but it's not building boost. This van has got no power. Now, we're doing about 60 miles an hour right now. Matt, if you can show this, it's because we're going on a flat surface, but right now, we're starting to go up this little hill. You see how the speedometer is going down? We're starting to lose power. So let's turn around and drive back to the shop. You guys will see the data on the scan tool. Matt will put it up. So Matt, I'm hungry. Okay, we need to go. Are you hungry too? Cameraman Matt, okay. It's lunchtime, guys. So here's what we're gonna do. Since this car is losing power, we can't take this to lunch because I don't wanna go get stuck somewhere with this. Let's drive back to the shop. Let's leave this at the shop and then let's go get lunch. When we get back, we're gonna continue our diagnosis, okay? So yeah, this is losing power. Ooh, I'm flooring this. No power at all. I'm flooring it. We're barely going over 40 miles an hour. All right, we are back in the shop after our lunch. Cameraman Matt ate too much. Anyways, we are back. Actually, that was a good lunch. The drinks were good. Okay, back in the shop. Let me scan the engine computer so we can see what codes came back. And then I'm gonna bring out my smoke machine. We're gonna smoke the induction system to see if we have a boost leak somewhere. And then we're gonna check the swirl motor. And after that, we're also gonna check the turbo actuator. Now, my snap-on scan tool is not good at bidirectional test. I'm gonna have to connect my Autel scan tool to the vehicle to do those tests. So let's go in the engine computer and see what we got. So we have 3 codes that came back. First one is P10 C700. It says there is an internal fault in component B90/2 left EKS end position measurement sensor. And then, okay, so again, these first two codes can be caused by actuator, a swirl motor that's not working. So now what I'm gonna do is, before we check the swirl motor, I'm gonna put my scan tool over here. I'm gonna remove the air filter box. We're gonna pop this off. I'm gonna get my smoke machine and then I'll bring you guys back up. All right, I got my smoke machine out. So now we're gonna connect our smoke machine to ground and power. So this is gonna go over here to ground. So we're grounding our smoke machine right there. And then we're gonna connect our power wire here. Okay, so as you can see, there is a green light that's on here. And then I'm gonna connect our line, air line to it. We're gonna remove our air filter box. We're gonna undo this clamp. We're gonna pop this off. We're gonna pop this out of the way. I'm just gonna sit this over here. Now I'm gonna turn on our smoke machine. Now, before I turn on our smoke machine, we're gonna actually, before we get this bladder on the inlet tube, I'm gonna put a light over here because it still looks a little dark here. All right, so now we're gonna install this bladder here. I'm gonna send smoke down the induction system to see if we have a leak somewhere. I'm gonna turn on our smoke machine. So eventually we're gonna see smoke coming out of this tube. So right there, I hope you can see it. We have smoke coming out of this. Now, if there's no leak in the system, there's a check ball over here. Matt, I don't know if you can see this ball. If I plug this, the check ball is gonna go down. So basically what we wanna see is, we wanna see that check ball go down. Okay, so now I'm gonna connect this line to the bladder. And then we're gonna wait. Hopefully there are no leaks, but let's see. Because smoke is gonna travel through the turbo and into the tubes between the turbo and the intake manifold, and then it's gonna go through the charge air cooler. So our check ball hasn't moved yet. Actually, the gauge is bouncing up and down, so which usually means there are no leaks, so that's good. We're gonna keep observing this. I'm gonna look around. I'm gonna go grab my flashlight. We're gonna look around here. I'm looking for smoke. So if there is smoke leaking out of anywhere here, that would be a problem. No smoke leaking here. Okay, so I'm looking around the induction tubes. Nothing. Let me make sure we still have smoke going. Okay, we have smoke going through. I'm looking around the charger cooler. There's nothing here. Nothing is leaking down here. That's good. I like how dry it is under the engine. There's no oil leaks there. So let's wait a little longer. So we're gonna wait for a little bit. We don't have to keep the camera on. I'm gonna observe and watch this. If we find a leak somewhere, we're gonna bring you guys back up so we can show it to you. All right, guys, so we've been observing this for a little bit now, and we don't have smoke leaking out of anywhere here. under the hood. So as you guys can see, oh, my light just died. So we don't have smoke coming out. So we most likely don't have a leak in the induction system. So now I'm gonna get my smoke machine out of the way. I'm gonna turn it off. We're gonna get the air line disconnected. I also looked underneath to see if the charger cooler tubes are leaking. None of them are leaking. So we're gonna get this removed. I'm gonna get my smoke machine over here for now. So now we're gonna check the turbo actuator and the swirl motor between the intake manifolds. I have my RTL scan tool connected to the vehicle. Let's see what we got. Now the first thing I'm gonna look for is when I turn on the turbo actuator, when I actuate it, the lever on the turbo should move. I mean, it should, because when we were revving the engine earlier, I heard the turbo hissing. We're gonna have a couple codes in the engine computer. Okay, we will have mass airflow sensor codes. That's okay because I have the mass airflow sensor disconnected. Let me clear all these codes. We have all the codes saved in the Snap-on scan tool, so that's fine. If I want to know what codes we have, I can go back and check there. So we're going into the engine computer right now. Why is this taking forever? It's taking forever. Let me cycle the key. I don't know why it's taking a long time to read. Okay, so we're gonna go to active test. We're gonna go to boost pressure positioner. We're gonna turn it on. The actuator is now moving. Okay, so Matt is gonna bring you guys close here. So this actuator, I'm turning it on and off with the scan tool. This lever should move. Nothing is happening. Okay, so we could have a defective actuator, or we could have a wiring issue of the actuator. So here's what I'm gonna do. Since we cannot turn it on with the scan tool, I'm gonna remove this tube. Matt, if you can show everyone what I'm about to do here. So I'm gonna get this tube out of the way, and then we're gonna try to turn on the actuator manually with a test light. So I'm going to disconnect this tube. We're gonna get the tube out of the way, and then I'm gonna move this. Let's just move this out of the way. I'm gonna leave this breather connected. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna disconnect it. I'm gonna disconnect it. This little locking piece is broken. Okay. So Matt, if you can focus on this electrical connector here, I'm gonna grab a test light. This actuator may not be moving, and if the actuator is not opening and closing the vanes in the turbo, the vehicle is not gonna, the turbo is not gonna create boost. So I'm gonna back probe the first wire on this electrical connector. Okay, we got that back probed. If I remember correctly, that wire should be power. That should be the supply voltage to the actuator. So here, Matt, I'm gonna connect the not scan tool. I'm gonna connect the test light to ground over here. We're gonna test our test light. If we touch power, our test light should light. As you can see, test light lights. So the key is on in the vehicle. So we're gonna attach this back probing tool. So right there, we have power going to the actuator. So that's good. Now we're gonna move our back probing tool to the next wire. So we know this wire has power. Now we're gonna back probe this one here. Okay, we are still connected to ground. I'm gonna touch this tool over here. Nothing is happening. We're gonna move to the other wire. Actually, let's stay on the second wire. Let me touch this, nothing. So I'm gonna move my test light to battery positive. Okay, if I touch ground, test light is gonna light. So we're gonna touch the second wire. So this is ground. So we have ground at the actuator. Okay, our test light is connected to power. If we touch ground, test light lights. So the actuator is getting a good power and good ground. So now we're gonna connect to the third wire, which is the control wire of the actuator. Now I'm gonna move my test light to ground, okay? Because the computer grounds the control wire to actuate the actuator on the turbo. When I do this, the actuator should move. As you can see, nothing is happening. Okay, so I'm sending ground down this wire. Nothing is happening. Based on the test that we did, I can tell that the actuator is bad. The turbo actuator is not opening and closing the vanes. I'm gonna get a multimeter. I wanna measure the voltage on the control wire. If I remember correctly, when the key is on, you should have between 5 and 7 volts on the control wire of the actuator. If we have that voltage and the actuator still doesn't move, then I'll feel comfortable condemning an actuator. I'm gonna grab a multimeter, then I'll bring you guys back up. All right, so we got our multimeter. I'm gonna turn it on. We're gonna set our multimeter on the voltage scale. Okay, so I'm gonna ground my multimeter here. Now I'm gonna connect my other multimeter test lead to this wire that goes to the control wire. To this back probing tool. Look at what we have. We have 9.63 volts. So this is good. This tells me that the wire of the actuator is good because this voltage is actually coming from the engine computer. Okay, so I'm gonna move this down over here. So this is ground. So I'm moving this back probing tool. If I back probe this wire, we technically have system voltage here. Actually, the battery is getting low. That's fine. We're gonna have to charge it. We have ground on the second wire, and then on the third wire, we have 9.48. So we are done, guys. I've done this multiple times. Based on the results that we got, I can tell that the turbo actuator is defective. That's why the vehicle doesn't have power, because the actuator is not opening and closing the vanes when we're driving down the road. So that's why the vehicle is losing power. So that's one problem we have figured out. Turbo actuator needs to be replaced. And then the second test we're gonna do is we're gonna check the swirl motor, the motor between the intake manifolds. So I'm gonna back probe all these wires, and then I will have Matt show you guys the wires that I'm back probing. I'm gonna get my test light and my multimeter out of the way. We're gonna use a lab scope to test the wires of the swirl motor. So I'm gonna back probe. So the swirl motor has 3 wires. So I'm gonna back probe all of them. And then we're gonna back probe the last wire, which is the blue wire. Okay, just like that. And then I'm gonna connect this over here. Perfect. So we are back probing all these wires at the swirl motor. I'm gonna ground my lab scope. So as the lab scope is turning on, let me get the screen recorder here. So we're gonna use our scan tool to turn on the swirl motor. So I'm gonna back out. We're gonna do another functional test. This time we're gonna do the intake port shut off. That's the test we're gonna do. I don't know if you guys can tell. I can hear the swirl motor is trying to move. Listen. It's like the swirl motor is trying to move. So I think the flaps in the intake manifold might be stuck. So let me bring up our scope here, because I wanna look at the control wire when we are turning on the swirl motor. So we're gonna go to our lab scope. So the swirl motor could not be bad. The issue is probably, okay, so right here, okay, so we do have control. So our control wire is the blue trace, the green trace is ground, and then the yellow trace is supply voltage to the swirl motor. Okay, so you guys will see this. Matt is gonna put this up on the screen. So let's turn this on one more time. Yeah, our control is changing on the lab scope. And I'm gonna move my mic. Let me move my mic close to the swirl motor. I can hear it clicking. I'm gonna move my mic over here. I hope you can hear it. Let me back out of this test. I heard it click. Right there. Right there. Right there. Can you hear it, Matt? Yeah, so Matt can hear it. And I hope the mic is picking it up so you can hear it. So the noise you heard, it sounds like, oops, it sounds like the swirl motor is jammed. Okay, the motor itself could be good, but the flaps in the intake manifolds are most likely stuck. Okay, and then the wiring is good because when I turn this on, our control on the lab scope changes. So the swirl motor is getting good power, good ground, good control from the engine computer, but the actuation is not happening. So the flaps in the intake manifold are most likely stuck. Knowing that this vehicle has been sitting for a while, I believe that's the issue. Now what we need to do is we have to take the intake manifolds out and look at them to see if we can clean the flaps in the intake manifolds, or we have to replace the intake manifolds. The other thing we could do is we can use a camera. We can use a camera that's gonna go into the intake manifold, but I don't know where we're gonna insert the camera. I mean, we can remove the EGR tube over here. Matt, if you can come show this tube. We can remove this EGR tube, and then we can put a camera in here because this is the intake tube. And then, because this tube goes all the way up to the manifold here. But the thing is, I don't know if my camera is going to be long enough, because if we get into the intake manifold, this is the intake manifold. If we get into one of the runners in the intake manifold, we're going to see that the flaps in the intake manifolds are stuck. So at this point, we are done with our diagnosis. This vehicle is going to need a new turbo actuator. We have stuck intake manifold flaps. We might have to replace the intake manifolds depending on how stuck they are. So to know that, we have to remove the intake manifolds first to see if we can clean them. I'll try to clean them and unstick them. If we cannot unstick them, then we're going to have to replace the intake manifolds. So I have to talk to the customer and get the go-ahead to remove the intake manifold, and then we'll go from there. So I will make an estimate. We're going to put out part 2 of this video, so be on the lookout for part 2. And then I know we had a code for a ambient air temperature sensor, so I'm going to have to see if the sensor is the issue or the circuit. So that's something pretty easy. It's right here behind the bumper. So we will get to that. We can get to that later on. So the actuator is what's causing the vehicle to lose power, okay? And then the other thing is what's causing the flaps is what's causing the check engine light to remain on. So now we might have other issues going on. I'm gonna notify the customer that since the vehicle has been sitting, we have to fix these components first and then drive the vehicle and see if something else comes up, okay? So these components are the ones we're gonna replace first and then we'll go from there. So be on the lookout for part 2. Cameraman Matt, thanks for being here. Everybody, thank you for watching our videos. I hope you liked the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumb down. But if you do, tell us why so we can make better videos in the future. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.